Oh, hey, Gabba Gabba, hey, guys. Sorry, I was just in the middle of playing Rockin' Out a little bit. No, sorry, I'm not Johnny Ramone. It's actually your old friend Frightener22 here, welcoming you guys back to another installment of Saturday Night Movie Drive-In. And as promised, we're going to be reviewing one of my favorite flicks of all times, 1979's Rock and Roll High School. So now, before I actually delve into just how badass and amazing this film really is to me, I'm just going to get in and give you a nutshell version of the plot. So pretty much what we're dealing with is 1979 at Vince Lombardi High. The film pretty much takes off with some bitch Nazi of a principal taking over Vince Lombardi High by the name of Miss Togar. She rules shit with an iron whip, just trying to whip the high school into shape and trying to rid rock and roll of the student body from them for good. So after that's set into motion, we come across our two main characters in the film, PJ Soles, who plays the infamous Riff Randall, rock and roller, and of course her best friend, Kate Rambo. Now throughout the film, there's actually two plot lines going on between the two main characters. Kate Rambo is she's kind of a geek in the school, and she's trying to secure a date with her main interest of Tom Roberts, who's the football quarterback of the school, but he's actually a pretty big geek and really can't talk or get a girl for shit. And the other plot line deals with PJ Soles' character of Riff Randall being a crazy obsessive fan of course, none other than the Ramones, and she knows that they're coming into town, so being the huge fan that she is, she's actually been crafting her songwriting abilities for them in hopes to, give them songs that she's written for them to perform. So with that plot line in full motion, it's pretty much a race for Kate Rambo to secure her date with Tom Roberts, and for Riff Randall to finally meet the Ramones and show off her songwriting muscles to them. So, as simple as a plot line that is, it's really hard to try and, explain to you guys just why Rock and Roll High School is as great as it is. It really is just a film that needs to be seen and experienced to understand exactly just how much fun it is. Now, being a gigantic Ramones fan and realizing that they were actually in a music film, where they're actually the stars of it, was just incredibly amazing. I mean, it was just so great because their music is just so impactful and just so, amazing. It's just spans so many decades that it's just so great to see their personalities and their music come alive in such a fun, really teenage film such as Rock and Roll High School. So it really is awesome. I mean, the hilarity in this film is just amazing. The hijinks are just all over the place, and it just really captures that just quintessential teenage spirit that, so many films after Rock and Roll High School, well into the 80s, into the 90s, and of course here in 2010, are still trying to replicate to this day. But none did it quite like Rock and Roll High School. They just captured everything that was good about high school. Homework, teenagers rebelling, rock and roll, hot chicks, sex, drugs, everything under the sun is in this movie, and that's really where it works the most. It's just using everything that we loved as teenagers and putting it all into an 84-minute masterpiece. So all that said, I'm going to give you guys some really cool notes in case some people, weren't really hip to them. As many of you guys may or may not know, famous producer Roger Corman was behind on this film, so he actually teamed up and got Allan Arkush to direct it. And interestingly enough, on the last day of shooting, director Allan Arkush was hospitalized for severe exhaustion, so none other than director Joe Dante, who's most prominently famous for directing such gems as Piranha, Gremlins 2, actually stepped in and directed several scenes for Allan Arkush while he was recovering. One of them being one of my favorite scenes throughout the whole movie, which is the gymnasium scene where Riff Randall's character is actually singing her rendition of Rock and Roll High School. It's such a classic scene. I mean, you have hot babes hanging out all over the gym in skimpy clothes while, PJ Soles just kind of flaunts her stuff using a jumping rope as her mic. It's just really, really awesome. I really love that scene. Another interesting thing to note is that the Ramones were actually paid $25,000 to appear in the film, and they actually had to play some local Southern California shows just to cover their hospital bills. So over the entire 21-day shoot, a lot of shit actually went down. Dee Dee, the bass player, got into a fight with a roadie. He ended up in jail, and then he actually ended up owing $3,000 for being medicated in a hospital after overdosing in the jail. How all that stuff happened within, a 21-day shoot is beyond me, but what can you say? It's the Ramones, so you know you're going to be getting tons of craziness ensuing on any film set with them. Furthermore, sticking with Dee Dee, actually his acting abilities were so terrible that they cut his lines down from 2 lines to just simply 1. That's why in the film, the only thing that you actually hear Dee Dee say is, pizza, let's dig in. That's the only thing that you hear him say, and I mean, as one can expect, these guys were musicians. They're no actors, so their acting is pretty bad, but it's just really, really cool to see them on screen and, performing their great hit songs, and just seeing some kind of acting ability. It's really cool. I mean, there's a really great dream sequence where, Riff Randall comes home to smoke a joint, and then she's just kind of like, dazing out, and then the Ramones appear in her room, and they sing I Want You Around to her. It's really cool. There's just a lot of really awesome stuff in there that I really liked. I mean, you have the great Clint Howard in there who plays this great character Eagle Bauer, and he's just kind of like, this guy that kind of can get you anything. Fake IDs, hall passes, test answers, hooking you up on dates with people, and he's like stationed in a stall in the school with like a secretary, and he's got a desk in a stall and everything. It's just like a little thing like that just made this film so charming to me. It was so cool and hilarious, and I just always fantasized how cool that would be to just like escape from class for a few minutes just to like talk about my problems and getting free test answers from a stall with some like, fellow student working at a desk that just really seemed to have his shit together. It was just really, really cool. So, moving on to that, I think it's just really important to note, and I think that it's really special to note that Rock and Roll High School is a film that, came out in 1979, and it really was it was a film like Rock and Roll High School that really paved the way and ushered in the great teenage films that people talk about so dominantly now, calling them classics, such as the John Hughes films like The Breakfast Club and 16 Candles, and then of course moving on later into the 90s with such films as Clueless and 10 Things I Hate About You, and then furthermore into the millennium with such films as Juno and Superbad. All those films are teenage films that have, heart and hilarity, but it was a film like Rock and Roll High School that really paved the way, and, as each decade came into their own, had their own trends coming in and out and stuff, Rock and Roll High School just had something truly unique and they never really tried to capture anything big or, really, like life-altering. They just really captured what high school was all about. It's fun, it's hijinks, and of course, best of all, they just, implemented that great fusion of rock and roll power into it, which I just thought was its strongest point, and with every single viewing, I just fall in love with this movie more and more. It really is that great of a film, and especially for a drive-in type film, this was one film that could not have been, viewed without, like, being reviewed on Saturday Night Movie Drive-In. So it was a huge honor and pleasure to actually just talk this shit and explain how great and special this movie is to me, specifically, because I think that if you asked me to conduct probably a top 10 or a top 20 greatest films of all time to me, 1979's Rock and Roll High School would certainly be in there without a doubt. It's just got everything in it. So whether you like hot chicks, great rock and roll music, go no further than 1979's Rock and Roll High School. I certainly know that you guys will not be disappointed. Sadly enough, this DVD that I have on my side was actually discontinued and made out of print in 2005, but with Shout Factory's Roger Corman's Cult Classics coming out in April, hopefully in future releases, Rock and Roll High School will be re-released so everybody can enjoy it. Luckily, if you have Netflix, I think you still might be able to snag a copy, so if you can, get out there and see this film. I know you guys will not be disappointed. Hey ho, let's go and check out Rock and Roll High School. This is Frightener22. Thanks again for tuning in, guys.
Hey!